welcome to this lecture. So in the previous couple of lectures we have dealt with this component, bricks, coins, enemies and our player Mario. Now it's time to work on this level. So go to this, after this define startup, we'll just call some functions here that will be set up ping the background, and this will set up a background for us. And similarly we'll say set me as basically ground for our game, and this will be in this setup ground. And similarly steps and bricks. So let me set up again here pipes first in the game, and similarly let's set something that is steps, and after that you just have to set up the bricks, set up bricks with this function that is set up bricks. And the next thing you can do is we'll set up the enemies and our Mario player, that is from this setup function, maybe let me say enemies, and the last will be self dot set me up, that is Mario here. So let's set a Mario. So after this, what are you gonna call? So after this you want to call that is sprite group. So after this, sprite group is basically the group of our images. So we'll just create these sprite groups here. And now it's time to create all these functions, that is set up background, set up ground, set up pipes, and similarly all of these. So let's get started with this set up background first. So let me define set up background first. So let me just give a name here, and the parameter will be this current object. And this basically sets the background image rectangle and scales it to the correct proportions. So let's do that. First we have to set this background and name it as background, and this can be done by setup.jfx. so we haven't imported this setup module. Let's do that first. So after importing all of these modules, go back here and just call this jfx, and it should load us level 1. So you can go in this level1.png and see this is our background of our game. So this is basically path and background. So let's go again to this level1.py, and now it's time to set the back rectangle, and this is basically scaling to the correct proportions. We'll just make here is a back rect first, and this can be get from this background image and just get from this get rect function, and we have used this multiple times. So next thing what you can do is we can scale this background to this background multiplier factor. So that can be done from this background. Now set is something that is just called the pygame module to transform, and this transformation should be the scaling, and just give the surface. So surface will be obviously this self dot background, and just give the height and the width basically here in this tuple. So in this tuple you have to give height and width. So the next height and width after the scaling should be something that is first one, that was self dot back dot rect. So this was the previous rect, and just get the width of it. So this can be width, and after getting the width just multiply it with the something that is a background multiplier, and this is the constant unit. And next thing what you can do is we'll also get this same background that is from this back rect, and just get a height now. So let me go down here, and after this height what you can do is let me say height here, and after this height, when you get height you should multiply it with again this background multiplier. So this background multiplier is in float, so let me just convert it to an integer by this typecasting, that is just putting this in function here and just put it here too. So we have now self.background after we scaled. So now it's time to get again this the rect out of this new background, that is let me say it should be back rect again, and let's get it from this self.background, and again the same function, that is get rect function, in order to get rect. And next thing what you can do is we'll just extract the width now. That should be width here, and width should be self.back rect, and here you should get the width, and similarly get the height, and height should be self.first back rect and height. So basically this two statement is getting the height and width of this image. So after that what you're gonna do is we'll just create here label, and it should be a label, and this label should be something that is after we have this module, and just get the surface, and surface should be here as in just give the in this quarks, you have to just pass as a width here and height, just give it a width and a height, and just call it here convert function. This basically converts our surface, so you can give here that is your surface, and in this case your surface is self.background. So next thing what you can do after this is you can just create the label rect out of this. So just create that, this should be self.label, and after this you just create this get rect function, just call it here, and you are good to go. So next thing is creating the viewport. So that would be like viewport, this is a variable, and this can be assigned from this setup function, and you can have something that is here screen, and this is basically the screen for our game, and just get rect. So this is also viewport. Viewport is getting the windows, basically window viewport is the screen, basically size of the screen. So get the rect, and here we have to pass a bottom is self.label rect dot bottom. This should be label rect dot bottom, because the base is basically the same as of that viewport. So next thing we'll just set this viewport yux to be is game info, and just give the game info, and it should be camera here, so it should be camera start yux. So if you go in this constant.py and see that camera yux start yux, camera start yux, you can see this is a dictionary that is keys, which is the basically string type, which is camera start yux. So let's get back to this level 1.py again. So now we have the viewport and we have the background in our game, which is this background. So next thing after this background we have setup ground. So let's do that in here. So let's define that is setup ground function, and it will just take our current object. So this basically creates a collidable invisible rectangle, and it is over the top of the ground for the sprite to work on or walk on. Basically this is the setting of a ground, so this will be the sprite. So for that we have to set up a collider here. So you can see that in the components we have a collider class, so we'll make use of that, and let's make this ground rect 1. So this should be called as collider, and we have something that is collider class there, and you should pass in this collider. Let's check that. So it should have xy, width, height and name. So let's go back to here, and it should be first having this height, and it should have width now, and let me say that is c dot ground height. And now it's time to give the positions. Let me say 2953 and 60. So if you go back to this collider and see, the name is collider, which is a default. We have give this height and width, and x and y. X and y is basically the position, and this basically x and y. So x should be O, this should be ground height, and this is the position. And similarly, let's make this same collider here. So let me just copy it, so you can have the same statement here of the collider to make the ground rectangle too. So just make here, that is now this x should be, because we are creating this rectangle over the top of the ground or sprite to work on, so we have to change the position again. So this is basically x position. So let me say 300 or 3048, and this position should be now somewhere 653. And this is our next collider. Now let's make ground rect 3. So you can get this code to reference in the resource section if you want. So first point will be, that is 3819. Second will be the ground height, and third will be somewhere here, that is 2735 and 60. So we have now last rectangle. So you can create as many as you can and just add it to the group. So let me just make here 4, and the start x position would be 6647, and it's the ground height, and 2300 and 60. So after that, let's create this group. So this should be made as ground group, and let's create the sprite group. So that can be initialized pg sprite, and from this group function, and in this group just put all this ground rect. So first is ground rect 1, second is ground rect 2. So let's put all of this ground rect here. This should be 2, and similarly 3, and let me put ground rect 4, that is the last one. So after this, we have completed our setuping the ground. So next function will be setup pipes. So let's define it. So first will be setup and pipes. So just write it and just give a self here and colon, and basically this is to create the collidable rects for all the pipe. So we'll just set up the pipes and create the rect for all this pipe. So that can be done from this collider again, and let me just create the collider instances again, and that should be just calling this collider dot collider class, and give the position here 1202 and 452 and 83 is width, and 82 be the height. So let's copy all of these and let's paste it multiple times. So let's paste it maybe 6 times, and one more. And here this should be pipe 2, and third will be pipe 3, 4, 5 and 6, pipe 6. So let's make change in this position now. So first position will be here 1631, and this pipe will have this 8409, and we can just alter this width and the height of the pipe. So width will be the constant, but the height will be, so let's make a huge pipe here 140. So let's make again in this pipe third, let's make 170 to be the width, and let's pipe 4 also be 170, and 82 and 82. So just change this position now. So here after this 1631, so let's change it to be let's say 1973, and this can be somewhere to 360, or just put it random 360, and this is basically the position. And after that, what you're going to have is this pipe 4. So let me put pipe 4 as this position and y8 366, and this position should be accurate. So you can just change this, that is a width and height, but the position does matter in the background, that is sprite. So 6989 would be this x position. Y position, let me say it should be 452, and the last one, now let me just give it to at the top, that is 7675, that is nearly at the end of our game, and it should have this width 83 and 82. So let's also add this to the sprite group. So let's make this pipe group to just store it. Let's it's call pipe group, and just instantiate it as call this sprite dirt, and we have group. So just create the group and add this all the pipe here, that is pipe 1, pipe 2, all of this pipe. So let me just copy this here and just paste it down, all of this pipe. And this should be 3 here, and next one will be 4 and 5, and last one will be 6. So we have added this all this pipe that was this at this collider position, and we can go to this collider in order to say that it is just creating us a rectangle, that is a collidable rectangle for all the pipes. So let's go back to this level 1 and again make a collidable that is rect for all the steps. So let's define that is another function that would be set up steps here, and let's define that. So set up steps, and this basically creates a collidable rect for all the steps. So that should be step 1. First will be step 1, and since it is a collidable, we'll just use this collider dot collide and just give the position as we have done it in previous, that is setuping the pipes and setuping the ground. So first will be, let me say 5745, 495 and 40, and let me say 44. This is basically our step 1, and let me just copy all of this step and do it real quick. So I'll just pause it for now, and I'll come up with all the steps that we needed in the game and tell you what these steps are really about. So I have added all these steps, that basically is a collidable rect for all these steps. So from these collidable objects, and giving the position, and also we have this height and width. So if you go back to this collider.py, and you can see this x and y and height and name is in order to create this rect, and basically we'll have this state as none, which can be changed in this other function like setting the Mario and setting up the image of them. So now it's time to just create this group again for the step, and we'll just create from this function, that is pg.sprite.group, that we did earlier in the case of a pipe, and we'll just add this all of these steps from 1 to 27 in this group. So now next function we left off is just creating, let me see and go above here, and it's time to set upping the bricks. So let's set up the bricks now. So let's define, that is the set me up bricks here, and it should be here self. So this should be here, and let me just put here a self, that's current object. And now it's time to create all the breakable bricks for this level, and coin and power up groups are created so they can be passed to these bricks. So we'll just create all the breakable bricks in this setup bricks function. So let's create first this coin group. So this will be added to this brick. So first we'll say coin group. So this can be instantiated as sprite, and we know how to create the group from this function, that is group function. And this group is basically a class here. So here group is a class which will be just calling this initializer or a constructor, so it's to say. So after that we'll just create this power of group, and it is important because we'll just work with this power of group and to get this content to these bricks. So for that I'll say power of group, and I'll say that is pg.sprite.groups, just instantiating these power groups. So after that we'll just create the brick, and from this bricks class, so that would be first should be brick 1, and that should be calling from this brick function, and we have something that is brick class here. And if you go here in this component and this bricks.py, you could see in this instantiating this, we have to just pass only x and y point. Content will be none here, and power group will be none, and name will be the brick. It will assign all of these value to this rect x and rect y. And similarly we'll just use this framing or setting of the contents for the brick. So for that, what you're gonna do, first will be just giving the position. That would be x position for the brick in this image, that is in this sprite of our background. So that would be this position 858 and 365. We'll make a brick that is a couple of a brick, and this should be brick 2. Let's create this brick from this brick class and just give the position. Let me say 944 and 365, and this you can just work with these numbers in order to check the position for the bricks. And let me just quickly pause this video and come up with all these bricks that needed in this game. So see you in a minute. So I have added all these bricks from 1 to 31, and this is the x position, y position. If you see here, this is something we have added more, that is if there was a default in this go to this bricks.py, so if it was content was none, and in this case we have just added something that is here. In this case we have added, this is a 6 coin and star. So similarly there will be the coin group and power group associated with this group, which is power group here. And next thing what we did was we'll just create this group, that is brick groups out of this all of these group, and we just added these all these bricks from 1 to 31 that we created here in these groups, and we just created this sprite group as in brick group. So it's time to create this another function, that is setting up the enemies. So let's set up the enemies now. So that would be like defining, this should be here, defining our another function, that is set up enemies. Let me say enemies and just give a self here. So let me check it, is these enemies or enemy? So it is enemies. Now it's time to just create all the enemies and store them in a list of a list. So let's create that. So first we have something that is Goombas. So this is our enemy. So let's create that. So that should be created from this enemy class, and let's create that from this enemies, and that should be enemy dot and get this Goomba. And in this Goomba what you're gonna have is nothing basically. So in this first we'll just have nothing, and if you go in this Goomba, that is our enemy, and that is saying enemy here, and it will be instantiated here is nothing. That means it will just be instantiated here as an sprite, that is with an image. So let's go here in this level.py and assign another Goomba, that is Goomba 1, and let's create this as enemy dot Goomba again. And instead of just doing it again and again, let me just copy this and just paste it here now. So let me just copy it. Let me just copy all of these, and just paste it here. So we'll make 15 Goombas. Okay, you can just create as many you like, but we'll just create here 10. Okay, let me just create 10 here. 10 to 15 would be good. So let me say one more, two more. Okay, so it is 1, and it's here it should be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9, and let me say 10, and we'll just remove this. Now it's time to just analyze this Goomba, because we have just created the enemies. And let me just give a position in some of these. So let me say in 4 I'll just pass as 193, and this is basically the reference to that enemy. So in this 5 too, I'll just put the 193. So after that, it's time to create again the sprite. In this case, it is just a list. So just create that list to get this enemy. So it should be named as enemy group list. So this is our list which contains an enemy group. That is basically our group. So in order to make this group, what you can do is just create this group again from this group function. So let's do that. Firstly, we'll say enemy group now, and let me say it should be enemy group 1, and this enemy group 1 can be instantiated as this sprite.group. So we have created this group from beginning of our lectures. So here what you're gonna have is Goomba O group 1, and you can just combine these. You can just have these 7 Goombas coming together. So that can be really difficult game. So our Mario will die if this Goomba is coming only in the group that is 7 and 8. So let's stick here to something that is only 2 Goomba at a time or 3 Goomba at a time. That would be quite interesting. So let me make a quick group here. That would be just copying it again and just paste it here. So this group should be 2, and again let me just paste some of these again here. Let me just make the group that would be more here, more group here again, and again 1. Let me just make up to 10 group. So this should be 3 now. 3 third group, and 4th group, 5th group, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th, and last will be 10. So I have 10 groups. So let's combine these Goombas in this group. So first will be only 1 single Goomba, second will be single Goomba. In the third enemy group there will be 2, that is Goomba. Just make 1 Goomba and another will be Goomba third, and after that we'll just make a Goomba 4 and Goomba that would be 6. Let's make that, and again let's make now, let me say it should be, now we have just covered 5, we haven't covered 5, so it would be 5, and let me say now it's 7, it should be alone 7, and let me just make it 8 and 8 only, so it will come alone, and I'll say 9 here and Goomba 10. So we haven't here much of the Goomba, so let's create 1 more or 2 more even. So let's say that is, so let's make more, that is up to, let's say 15. So let's paste that here, and 2 more, that will be okay. So now it is 10, and it should be 11 and 12, and it should be 13, 12, 13, 14, and 15. So this is Goomba 9 and 10. Now the next group, let me say it can be anything, that is okay, 12 to 12 and Goomba, just let's make 13 here. So just put 13 again. So make sure you just don't duplicate it, because if you just put here Goomba O and here 2 Goomba O, it won't work basically. So you have to be unique here. Group should have the unique sprite. So let's create another, that would be something that is 14, okay, and 15, the last is 1 is 15. Just put here again 15, and let me just search it, Goomba 15, where are you? So it should be 15 and it is here. Now we have completed our setup enemy function. It's time to go up and see what is we left off now, and we have only these two functions, that is setting up a Mario and setting up this important sprite group function, which will be covered in the next lecture, and eventually we'll just test our game. So see you in the next.